From 15 News, this is breaking news.
Thank you for joining us at 10. I'm Cameron Kelly. It's a first alert day, but we want to get straight to breaking news out of the Middle East. About an hour ago, we heard from President Donald Trump. He spoke about the U.S. military attack on 3 Iranian nuclear sites. Now, here's what we know now. The strike happened early this morning. It comes more than a week after Israel started attacking Iran. The president has been weighing the decision for almost a week now, as Iran pledged to retaliate if the U.S. joined the Israeli assault. Tonight, President Trump calls the U.S.'s attack a, quote, complete and total success.
For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. That was their specialty. We lost over 1,000 people, and hundreds of thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world have died as a direct result of their hate. In particular, so many were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani. I decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen. It will not continue.
President Trump says he will have a meeting with Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth tomorrow morning at the Pentagon. Lawmakers across the U.S. and here in Wisconsin are reacting to the attacks on Iran. Republican Congressman Derek Van Orden released the following statement to us. Quote, Iran's first mistake was not signing the deal that President Trump offered. Their second mistake was believing President Trump would not take the necessary steps to protect our allies and interests abroad. May God bless our magnificent military and protect Israel in these troubling times. Representative Mark Pocan also released a statement about the attack on Iran tonight via X. He writes, quote, Donald Trump just bombed Iran without any authorization from Congress, end quote. Now, we will continue to monitor the escalation in the Middle East, so make sure you download the free WMTV 15 News app to get the most accurate local and national coverage in Wisconsin.